Hello, good morning, hi, maybe good afternoon. This is my This and That video number 3. My name is Dawn Siebel, and this is my Patreon page. Now this month's This and That video, I thought I would I'm right at the time between finishing my last cycle of paintings and about to start my new ones. So I thought I would walk you through what I have. So I try in a quarter, in a 3-month period, I try to finish 5 to 6 paintings. I start them all about the same time and I wrap them all up about the same time. I have actually 6 paintings I'm going to do this next quarter, and I have 5. A couple of them are just on the edge of finished and the rest of them are finished. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about here. Okay, I'm going to start with this handsome fellow here whose name is Ajari. And this just happens to be the 3rd painting I have made of Ajari. Ajari I met in the Houston Zoo, where he is part of the Bachelor troupe. And I tend to have more paintings of him than I have of his 2 other partners in the Bachelor troupe, because he gave me more poses that work. So this is beautiful, handsome Ajari in his yoga pose, is what I call it. So you may be able to see some differences in the background on some of these. It's for 2 reasons. One is that the paintings are still drying, some of them, and 2 is that they haven't been varnished yet, which then will unify the final finish on the things. So some things here are standing out, and this, which is his arm, will actually be changed later. Now, one of the things I find of the great apes, and gorillas are great apes, we're a great ape, chimpanzees, bonobos that don't exist in zoos, and orangutans are the great apes. And these guys have these teeny tiny little ears that are like flat up against their head, and the ears just seem so small given how big and powerful they are. And orangutans have these little ears that are hidden underneath all the long hair that they have around themselves. But chimpanzees have mammoth ears that stick way out. So here's a chimpanzee, and here's a little young one, and I met him just a few months ago when I was passing through LA, actually almost a year ago now, how time flies. Last March I met him, and he is just really cute. I don't know his name. I was not at the zoo very long. But look at that face, look at that expression. So he's going to be next up. Now, another one that I just finished is this Markhor, who I also met at the LA Zoo just on a brief little 4-hour, 5-hour visit one day last March. I love Markhors. Even though I had researched the zoo before I went there, I did not know they had a Markhor, so I sort of stumbled upon him. The Markhor is the national animal of Pakistan, where it is illegal to have it killed. But if you go online, and when I first started painting endangered species, before I went to zoos, I found out about Markhors, fell in love with them and how they look, and went online to find more images, and I swear it's all Texans, sorry to generalize, with their arm around a dead Markhor and their rifle in the other hand. And they have gone into the war zones basically to kill this animal just to bring on the horns. And it is endangered because they're doing it. So the Markhor lives in the mountains of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Tajikistan, and maybe Uzbekistan too. And its numbers, because of trophy hunters, is really going down. So when I saw this fellow in LA, it was not a great habitat that he was in. Concrete rocks that he had to scamper on. And there was one tree in his enclosure which had been wrapped with chicken wire to protect the tree, but then I also realized maybe to protect him, because when I'm watching him, he suddenly like rears up on his hind legs and then puts his head down and rams straight on, head first into that tree. And then he backs up a little bit, and then he raises up his legs, and he does it again. And by the time I thought he was going to do it for the 3rd time, I had my wits together, and I had my camera out, and I was ready to take a picture, but he didn't do it again. So I do not have a video of him doing that. But I'm sure if he had a real Markhor to do it with, he would be doing it with another Markhor if it was rutting season or something. But they are such handsome, handsome animal, and I do hope they survive. Now here is Zuberi. And I'm going to get back to Zuberi a little later, but she is one of the many elephants that I went to meet in Wichita last year. And she's relatively youngin'. Let me just move the camera. Now this handsome fellow is Ty, and this is the black and white copy I have made, pieced together here. There's a seam that goes down here from my photo, blown up to the size that I want. So this is going to be a 4 by 4 foot painting of Ty, and I will then transfer the image to the thing and then start painting. But blowing them up first allows me to actually size the paintings right, because I only know when I can feel it, when I can see it in person. So Ty was born in 1965, they think, in Thailand, and then he was brought over when he was a youngster and was held privately in a circus or something like that for a short while in Oregon before he came to the Houston Zoo in 1980, where he has been ever since. So he is over 50 right now, and he has sired, I think, 4 children at the zoo, and he is an unusually engaged father. He plays with his kids. You know, usually within the elephant social structure, the males come and go. I mean, the young males stay around until they are of age, and then they move out too. But you know, the fathers aren't around to father their kids, but he is. He weighs about 12,000 pounds, and this is about how big Ty really is. There you go. You can't even see him now, right? If I was in his presence, this is probably a pretty good example. They measure the height of elephants by the shoulder, and so his shoulder is somewhere up here behind the head. And I'm not sure how tall he is at the shoulder, but likely 8 or 9 feet. And you know, I'm just under 6 feet, so he's a big boy. Elephants never stop growing, and their tusks never stop growing if they have tusks. And his tusks here have been clearly cut a while ago. I'm guessing that every few years the zoo actually cuts them just for his safety, mainly, I would think, so that they don't get broken in various things, because that could be very painful. But anyway, and elephants are handed just like we are. So we're right-handed or left-handed. Elephants have a handedness in their tusks in the ways that they use them. So they often have wear patterns. One tusk is shorter than another one, or it's more pointed. And this one, you can see it actually has this odd little straight edge along one side, and that is because of him somehow. There's another one on this side that's harder to see. But probably some way in which he's using his tusk is keeping this worn down to this over here. So anyway, he's an old guy. He's an Asian elephant from Thailand, I think I said. So he's this, they'll see later when it's a painting, but they lose the pigmentation in their trunks and in their ears as they age. So all of this gets pink and polka dotted. I'm really looking forward to painting Ty. These two beauties I met in the Santa Barbara Zoo last March. They are Amur leopards. Amur leopards are the most endangered big cat in the world. Amur is what they now call Siberian tigers or Siberian leopards, and Amur is the region in Siberia where they come from. In the wild, they're down to an unsustainable number. Hopefully that is being reversed. When I met these two, this is Wyatt and this is Ajax. And even though this god-awful name of Ajax for this beautiful female leopard, I don't know who was thinking what when they did that. But she had just come over a few months before from a zoo in the UK. The Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is an international organization, keeps the genetic history of all of these endangered species around their participating zoos around the world. And so they do their matches, figuring out this, you know, these genes are not represented in the gene pool. Let's see if we can pair this one with this one. And it's all about genetic diversity. It's all about a future for these animals. So part of the future that they're hoping for these animals, and may I say, though I haven't been back there, I've been online on the website for the Santa Barbara Zoo, and these guys When I was there, they weren't in the same place. They were just introduce each other. They would see each other through the bars, but he was at that point more interested in her than she was in him. He's also a couple years older than she is. At this point, I hear they are inseparable, that they are together all the time and they really love each other's company. So the hope is, of course, that they will be breeding. I don't even know if the zoo is attempting that yet or not. Zoos actually do regularly use birth controls with animals so they can time the births better, just to make sure things are working. So anyway, hopefully one day Ajax and Wyatt will make one or more beautiful little Amur leopard cubs, and also the hope is that in the future that their offspring will help to repopulate a special preserve that's been set up in the Amur region of Siberia in order to bring these species back to a viable population. It's also true for Amur tigers that share the same area with them. Now, one of the things, in order to do that, one of the things they need to do is to eventually teach these guys and their offspring what to be afraid of and wary of, which includes Amur tigers. But, oh my God, they are so handsome. And these guys they're the big cats, but they're not that big on the big cats. And they have blue eyes. I'm going to be painting a lot of elephants in this next cycle. I have a show in December that I hope to have several, like 5 or 6, my large elephant paintings for. So that's what I'm aiming this for. So I'm actually painting 3 elephants in my next cycle. And Tai is one. This is number 2. This is Shenga, and I met Shenga last October when I quickly went over to Cleveland to visit family and spent a couple of days at the Cleveland Zoo. Shenga was born in 1982, I believe. I doubt that she's ever had children, though I don't know that for a fact. So if born in 82, that makes her, 36 or something like that right now. Shenga is the first of those elephants that I'm painting, and I'm doing that because I am so in love with her forehead. So this is why I love blowing these images up to the size that I want, because you can see the difference in the texture to scale when you do this, and I have to then carry that over to my painting. So this is like a dried riverbed up here. I mean, it's just astonishing. And then when you get down here, this is like this little polka dotty, tiny, nubbly little texture that goes on in the trunk all the way down to the bottom of the trunk. And then you've got, of course, all the leathery textures in the rest of the body. And then up here along the ear, there's all these little hairs along here that you might not be able to see. Elephants are actually quite hairy, but you sort of have to have all the lighting conditions right to see it. Their hair is very fine, but there's little hairs through here that you can never see. And they usually have very long eyelashes too. So her eyelashes are about like that. And then also, besides all these other textures, there's all this smoothness in the ears, and then all the veining can be seen in the ears too. And then for one more texture, of course, you have the tusks. And she has well-used tusks. They grow in, they all grow in about 1/2 inch a month, and she's probably wearing them down at about that same rate. Okay, this girl is Simunye, and I have painted Simunye already once before in a big painting, and I'll probably paint her again because I have a lot of good images from her. Simunye I met at the Sedgwick County Zoo in Wichita in 2016, and they had 6 new African elephants that had come over from Africa that joined their elderly matriarch who was already at the zoo, and so they have a family of 7 and this beautiful 5-acre habitat with waterfalls and lakes and living grass and living trees and other trees that they can rip the bark off of and all sorts of things. And they have become a real family at the zoo. Now Simunye, who I think was 17 when I met her, so she's probably, she's a little bit older than that now, 17 or 18. She also came with a son, Titan, and Titan was about 7. So she first became a mama when she was about 11 years old, which is fairly typical. And this, my reference photo is a little bit out of focus here, but it will still work for me for my purposes. And in this case, I photographed her inside their really large elephant barn, which is a great place because then again, I've got that thing where I'm eye to eye with them, and it allows me to take better reference pictures. Some of the best vantages from their beautiful 5-acre habitat are actually up on an elevated thrust stage, but unless they're far away and I have a longer telephoto than I actually had, I can't get usable photos because I'm looking down on them, and I don't want any of my paintings to be looking down on my animals. So I showed you before with Ty about how big he is. Now I'm going to show you with Simunier because she's not as big. Simunier is probably closer to this in terms of if I was standing next to her. Although she's still growing, she's going to get bigger. She was a ton less in weight, though she's tall and lanky. She's quite tall. But she weighed a ton less than Stephanie, who was the matriarch, who was the 45-year-old matriarch who was already at the zoo. So they sort of looked each other over, and Simunier decided Stephanie could be the matriarch of this new group. But as I said, she is a mama, and she does have her son Titan with her, and she's just glorious. And this handsome fellow is Clyde, and if this wasn't a black and white print of his painting, you would see that there's red blood right here. The poor boy. Clyde lives with Bibi, though they're not often in the same on the same side of their bars. Bibi is a female. These are black rhinos. Bibi's a female. I believe she's had 2 babies in her life, and is sort of wanting a third, but poor Clyde doesn't seem to know what he's supposed to do. And Bibi gets mad at him, and so he regularly has little gouges on him from her, and he also has other kind of skin conditions that they treat him for. Now, I had the pleasure of petting Clyde and feeding Clyde, you know, and being this close to Clyde. And let me tell you that when a black rhino eats from your hand, in the first place, their upper lip, white rhinos have a square jaw. Black rhinos, it comes like this. It's a prehensile lip. Prehensile means it's hand-like. So they can use it like a hand. So they can scoop up things and pick up really tiny little things with their upper lip that does all this stuff. So if you put out your hand with this little treat in it for him, he will just come up. And it was just like, it was the softest little thing when he was eating out of my hand. It was like, oh my God, how can that be a rhinoceros? But it was. And then the skin right here is I'm softer than a soft brand new baby's bottom. I mean, this is just phenomenally texturally soft. And rhinos like to be pet. They like to be touched, even on their hide on the back, which is, you know, hard, and who knows what, you have to touch them harder for them to feel it probably, but they like being touched. They have, of course, they can be mean in the right circumstances. They have miserable vision and a very acute sense of smell. So if you startle a rhino, they might be very aggressive in response to that because their vision doesn't give them a lot of information right away, and they're just going to protect themselves. But I'm very looking forward to painting Clyde, and I loved having had the opportunity to pet him and feed him. And then up over here is another orangutan I'm painting. Is this one Pandu? I'm trying to remember. I'm amazed I keep all these names straight in my head sometimes. But I'm doing a show in Boulder at the end of the year, October, November, December, and I'm taking at least a dozen of the smaller size, so an 11 by 14 canvas board, which then can be framed out there. It'd be very easy for me to send them, nothing to break. Now this beauty is Zuberi, and she's another one of the elephants who came over from Swaziland to the Wichita County Zoo, and I met her in 2016 in the fall, late summer, and she was estimated to be 8 years old then. And when she came over, they hadn't, if they had done the genetic testing, which they might have done now, I don't know the results yet, but the zoo was thinking that she was related to 2 of the other young females, quite close in age to her, that she came over with. Sisters or cousins or something like that, but the genetic testing will show them. But indeed, she came over with friends. So there